Hello, and welcome to episode 9 in case you missed it. I hope you all enjoyed your spring break, and I know that I did. That said, we have a bunch of news to catch you up on. First off, as we discussed last episode, Super Tuesday has come and passed, and for all intents and purposes, we have two presumptive presidential nominees. I'll head back up to the board in just a moment to break down some of the results and discuss what's next. Furthermore, we'll also discuss President Biden's State of the Union last week. My name is Tyler Badgett, let's get right into it. Americans from both parties went to the polls last Tuesday and came back with rather decisive results on both ends. We're going to take a look at some of those results, including one strange one in particular, and talk a bit about what they mean for November. First, the Democrats. On Tuesday night, Joe Biden almost swept the entire map, only losing American Samoa, but we'll get into that in a little bit. He grabbed 1,866 delegates as of recording, 98.8% of all delegates thus far. Next up is uncommitted, which I discussed last episode, largely being a protest vote against President Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. As of recording, there are at least 20 uncommitted delegates. Lastly is Jason Palmer with 3 delegates. That's where American Samoa comes back in. Jason Palmer, a little-known entrepreneur from Maryland, defeated Biden in the American Samoa Democratic Caucus 51 votes to 40, making Biden the first incumbent to lose a presidential primary contest since Jimmy Carter in 1980. That said, turnout in this election was only about 0.6%, and Palmer has faced criticism online for claiming to American Samoa voters that he is very well known in the mainland. Here's a clip from one of his promotional videos courtesy of his campaign.
You're probably wondering, who is this Jason Palmer? I've never heard of him before. Well, in the mainland, I'm actually very well known.
In the Virginia primary, Biden defeated next best performing candidate Marianne Williamson 89% to 8%, sweeping every county in the Commonwealth and every delegate. Despite the lopsided victory for Biden, Williamson and Congressman Dean Phillips, who dropped out of the race last week, did pull chunks of vote around the state that could have implications for November. The non-Biden candidates, while not registering much statewide, did pull a rather significant amount of the vote in college campuses around the state. While those don't look particularly impressive, Biden is currently underperforming in these areas compared to President Obama in 2012. Furthermore, the previously mentioned uncommitted option has been performing fairly well with college students around the country, such as in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where UMich is located. So, what's next? Well, Biden is likely to clinch the nomination today, Tuesday, March 12th. He is committed to renominating Vice President Kamala Harris as his running mate, so all that awaits now is his campaign kicking into gear for the general. Recently, the Biden campaign began an ad blitz in swing states, which showed Biden poke fun at his age and highlight various policy from his administration. Well, the Republican primary is essentially over, and we have a nominee. Former President Donald Trump nearly swept Super Tuesday, save one contest in Vermont, garnering over 1,000 delegates and forcing former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley out of the race. With her wins in Vermont and D.C., she became the first woman ever to win a Republican primary contest. She announced her departure from the race on March 6th, the day after Super Tuesday, in South Carolina. Here's a clip from her withdrawal speech, courtesy of Fox News.
I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in.
In the Virginia primary, Trump defeated Haley by 28%, by far more than the final poll of the race suggested, though not without some troubling signs for Trump in the general election, and we'll get to that in just a second. As I mentioned in the last episode, there was a collection of must-win areas that Haley needed to win statewide. Here's how she did in those. In Northern Virginia, Nikki Haley had quite a strong performance, which is actually troubling for Trump in the general, meaning he could not win over suburbanites that he'll need if he wants to defeat Joe Biden in the state. Nikki Haley won Fairfax County, which offset some of the gains that Trump had within Loudoun County, Prince William County, and Stafford County. She also won the Charlottesville area in Albemarle, where UVA is. Nikki Haley performed strongly with college-educated voters, which there are a lot of in that area. That said, Nikki Haley didn't do a whole lot anywhere else in the state. In Central Virginia, which I said was a must-win for her, which I classified here as Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield, Nikki Haley only won Richmond, losing Henrico and Chesterfield by quite large margins, Trump even getting 63% in Chesterfield. Furthermore, she did not do strongly at all in Hampton Roads, with only winning Williamsburg, which hosts William & Mary, and a lot of college-educated suburbanites. So, what's next? While the Republican presidential primary may be over, the sweepstakes are on to be Donald Trump's running mate. Reportedly, from various sources, his shortlist contains Florida Representative Byron Donalds, former Representative from Hawaii Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, Governor of South Dakota Kristi Noem, Senator from South Carolina Tim Scott, Representative from New York Elise Stefanik, Senator from Alabama Katie Britt, who I will talk about in just a second, Senator from Ohio J.D. Vance, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, who you might remember ran in the presidential primary, which I talked about a couple episodes ago. That said, until we get a pick or something large happens between now and then, this will be likely my last time talking about the presidential race for a couple of episodes. That said, politics are strange, so who knows? Last Thursday, President Biden arrived to the Capitol in Washington, D.C. to address a joint session of Congress, his last State of the Union speech before he faces re-election. The State of the Union is typically used by presidents to lay out their agenda for their administration, giving updates to Congress about what they are doing. Biden's address focused on a number of topics, including the Russian invasion of Ukraine, gun violence, immigration, student loan debt, the Israel-Hamas war, infrastructure, reproductive rights, among other topics. Here are some select clips from his speech, courtesy of NBC News.
It's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. My team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis.
The Republican response was given by Alabama Senator Katie Britt, who has been criticized by Republicans and Democrats alike for her delivery of the speech, some calling it dramatic, others calling it creepy, among others who questioned her choice to give the speech in her kitchen. Here are some select clips from her speech, also courtesy of NBC.
Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only have yourself to blame. Tonight, I want to make a direct appeal to the parents out there, many of whom I know will be up, tossing and turning at 2 a.m., wondering how you're going to be in 3 places at once and then somehow still get dinner on the table. First of all, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you.
Jonathan M. Katz, a freelance journalist, reported shortly after Britt's speech that she misrepresented the story of sex trafficking victim Carla Jacinto Romero. Some claim that Britt's speech suggested that Romero was trafficked in the United States under the Biden administration, though she was trafficked in Mexico during the George W. Bush administration. During her speech, Britt said, quote, "When I first took office, I did something different. I traveled to the Del Rio sector of Texas, where I spoke to a woman who shared her story with me. She had been sex trafficked by the cartel starting at age 12, adding, quote, President Biden's border crisis is a disgrace, it's despicable, and it's almost entirely preventable. Britt and her office have defended her remarks, though Romero has accused Senator Britt of misrepresenting her story. Thank you so much for watching. In case you didn't know, or missed it, the Virginia legislative session is gavelled out on Saturday. Next week, we're dedicating nearly an entire episode to go through all the legislation that did and didn't make it to the desk of Governor Youngkin and did or didn't get signed. I also may have a surprise for you next week, though you'll have to wait and see. My name is Tyler Badgett, and I will see you next week. Bye!